The Antediluvian World was a book written by former Congressman Ignatius Donnelly from Minnesota. Antediluvian refers to a time pre-biblical flood. This is where shamanistic and pagan cultural myths are derived from, deviating from the accepted biblical narrative of the flood and the existence of Nephilim. In Old Norse, Jotuns are giants. This is the brief explanation as to why most cultures have a commonality in their interpretation of astrology. The lesser distributed follow up book to the antediluvian world was known as Ragnarok, the Age of Fire and Gravel. Please check the links in the description for the online version of this book. Ragnarok can best be defined as a real geological event that occurred in the antediluvian world and ushered in the Ice Age. According to Ignatius Donnelly, a comet is proof of these events, and according to Bjorn Johnston, a Halisjarna, or a comet in Icelandic, is a reoccurring motif that can be applied to the storytelling aspect of the Norse Eddas. Halley's comet and the decapitation of the giant Hrungnir by Thor represents this conflict. Comets in most myths you will find are viewed as harbingers of death. The headless Orion constellation, when coupled with a few favorable conjunctions such as Mercury representing Odin and Saturn representing the head of the giant Hrungnir himself, at the top of the Orion constellation, in opposition to Jupiter and Mars, representing Thor. In a nutshell, Ragnarok is the observable juxtaposition of celestial deities, the interaction of the planets throughout the various houses of the zodiac, and this story is told throughout the year. As Varg Vikernes would assert, during festivals, actors would reenact these stories and play roles in accordance to their status. However, the familiar theme of chaos versus order is rampant throughout the iteration of Ragnarok. Rather than view Ragnarok as an ongoing cyclical event portrayed by the changing of the seasons, you can take things more literally, as the prophecy was intended in Voluspa. The word Voluspa stemming from the word volva, or a witch. Voluspa is interpreted as witch's prophecy. Although Ragnarok is intended as a prophecy, it is told deliberately in a very roundabout way. The very start of Voluspa comes from the voice of Odin, asserting he is addressing the greater and lesser children of Heimdall, with Heimdall being the one to usher in Ragnarok, with the horn Gjallarhorn, signifying the impending attack of the Jotuns, or giants. I would assert again the three Norns must be took into account when examining Ragnarok as an existential anecdote that permeates within past, present, and future. Ragnarok, when viewed in context of Voluspa, is contrary to most mainstream publications, and it is not a tale of an impending cataclysm, but one of creation itself leading to a cycle of death and rebirth. When taking into account the occult significance of creation itself and the occult meaning of the lucky number 7, you have the 7 days of creation and the 7 days of the week, which are named after the Norse gods. The 7 chakra centers. When examining these things alchemically, one can begin to see the compartmentalization of energy centers as they relate to the outline of the earth in respect to the heavens. As above, so below. You have these 7 Sephiroth in the Kabbalistic tree of life, 7 continents, followed by 7 seas, 7 colors of light in the rainbow, or visible light spectrum, with again Heimdall ruling over this rainbow of our perception. The 7 sisters constellation within Taurus, going back to Adhumla, the primordial bull. The seventh tarot card, the chariot, embodying these polarities. A chariot usually representing a solar deity. Notice how there is a canvas of stars above the head of the charioteer, the seventh letter of the alphabet being the letter G, which can be applied to the Masonic interpretation. The argument for evolution over creationism ultimately won favor in courts in the controversial Scopes trial. And the argument was that if the perception of time in the eyes of, let's say, a divine architect of the universe is infinitesimal compared to man, then 7 days could be the time span of a millennia. I take this into account considering Ragnarok, and that the after effects on the mortal realm creates a 3-year winter known as Fimbulwinter, which I would argue could represent the duration of an ice age. So take this into account when considering the number 7 as a lucky number, whereas 13 is unlucky because, at least in tarot, it is the card of death. In Lokasenna, I view Lokasenna as the Norse version of the Last Supper, translating as the taunting of Loki or the flight of Loki. So Loki foretells to the rest of the gods how they will meet their death during Ragnarok. And in short, Loki barges in drunkenly on a feast, and he becomes the 13th figure in attendance until Thor shows up, and I should add, after he is on hiatus from slaying giants. Odin tolerates Loki's presence due to a blood pact they have made. When examining the esoteric, this is a perfect explanation for the intermingling of Nephilim and the sons of Heimdall, pre-Adamite man, as it would relate to the Masonic initiates and converts in medieval France from Norse paganism to more occult branches of Christianity who understood the pre-biblical flood world, alchemical symbolism for astronomy, which originated from the far eastern reaches of the world. That is all for now, though, and as always, check the links in the description, and thank you for your time.